A millionaire in a hoodie asked for a taco. But what the waitress did next changed everything. What started as a simple order at a small taco stand turned into a life-changing story of kindness, humility, and an unexpected twist no one saw coming. The sun had barely climbed over the horizon, painting the sky in pale shades of gold, when Emily unlocked the taco stand. The streets were still quiet, the kind of stillness that makes you feel like the world hasn't fully woken up yet. She tied her apron and got to work, humming softly to fill the silence. A small comfort in a life that often felt too heavy. Her hands moved automatically, wiping down counters, stacking napkins, checking the salsa bar. Each task a familiar routine that gave her mind space to wander. She thought about her mom's medicine, how the price had gone up again, and whether she could stretch the little she had left from her last paycheck. It wasn't the first time she'd had to do this math in her head. Emily had learned to find gratitude in the small things. The way the morning air smelled like fresh tortillas, the regulars who always said, "Thank you," the quiet moments before the rush began. Those little pockets of peace were what kept her grounded, even when everything else felt uncertain. Still, there was a heaviness she couldn't ignore. The bills stacked on the kitchen counter, her little brother's worried eyes when she skipped dinner to make sure he ate. She carried it all quietly, never wanting anyone to see how close to the edge they really were. But this morning, there was something different in the air, though she couldn't have explained what it was. Maybe it was the soft breeze that carried the smell of coffee from the cafe down the street. Maybe it was just her tired heart craving something new, even if she didn't know what that was yet. She glanced at the clock, waiting for the first customer to walk in, like they always did around this time. Her mind drifted to the thought of what her life might look like in a year or 5. Would she still be here, wiping tables and counting coins? Or could there be something more, something she hadn't dared to imagine? Before she could finish the thought, the door creaked open and a figure stepped inside. It was the start of a day that would change everything, though Emily, focused on her cloth and the table in front of her, didn't have a clue just yet. The door opened again, and in walked a man wearing a plain gray hoodie and faded jeans. He moved quietly, almost blending into the morning light that spilled across the floor. There was nothing flashy about him, no expensive watch, no fancy shoes, just someone looking for a quick meal. Emily noticed him, but in a place where strangers came and went all the time, she didn't think much of it. He approached the counter with a casual step, his hands tucked into the front pocket of his hoodie. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost hesitant, as he ordered a taco and a coffee. He barely looked up, giving Emily only a fleeting glance. There was something calm about him, but also different. She couldn't quite put her finger on it. As Emily prepared his order, she glanced at him from the side. He seemed to notice very little around him, like he was lost in thought. Yet, there was a quiet presence in the way he carried himself. Something told her this wasn't just another customer. He held a story beneath that simple hoodie, a life she could only guess at. Emily thought about the many people who had come through her doors over the years. Some were loud and brash, others shy and withdrawn. But this man had a stillness that made her pause. It wasn't intimidating or strange. It was almost magnetic, drawing her attention without even trying. He shifted slightly, checking his watch as if keeping track of time mattered, but then relaxed, letting his shoulders fall. He didn't rush or complain, didn't glance at his phone, didn't fidget with loose change. In a world full of distractions, his calm was remarkable, though she didn't realize its significance yet. As she handed him the coffee, their hands brushed briefly. It was a simple gesture, yet it sparked a small, unspoken acknowledgement between them. He looked at her properly for the first time, and she noticed a faint, almost hidden smile flicker across his face. Something about that glance lingered longer than it should. Emily returned the smile, curious but polite, unaware that this quiet man in a hoodie wasn't just a stranger. He carried a secret that could change her life in ways she hadn't imagined. And just like that, the morning, which had started so ordinary, began to feel charged with something unspoken, something waiting to unfold. Even with her own worries weighing heavily on her mind, Emily greeted him with the warmest smile she could muster. She treated him the same way she treated everyone who came through the door, with respect, attention, and a quiet patience that only came from years of understanding people. Each gesture, from pouring the coffee just right to wrapping the taco carefully, carried a sense of care that went unnoticed by most, but not this man. Emily remembered all the times she had been overlooked, dismissed, or ignored. She remembered how invisible it felt to work hard and still feel like no one saw her efforts. That memory fueled her determination to make sure every person who crossed her path felt recognized and valued, even if it was just for a few moments. Her kindness wasn't performative. It wasn't for tips or praise. It came from somewhere deeper, a place in her heart that understood how small gestures could ripple out in ways she might never witness. She had seen it in the smiles of regulars who returned week after week, carrying a little more hope than before. As she served him, Emily found herself asking simple, genuine questions, nothing intrusive, just enough to let him feel like a person, not just a customer. Her tone was easy, relaxed, and human, an invitation to connection rather than a transaction. It was the kind of kindness that disarms, that makes someone feel safe even when the world outside feels unpredictable. She noticed subtle cues, how he adjusted the cup in his hand, how his gaze lingered on the small decorations in the taco stand, how he seemed almost surprised by her warmth. It was as if he had stepped into a different world for a few minutes, one where patience, attention, and human care still existed. Emily's heart carried the unspoken hope that the world would notice, eventually, that kindness matters. But she never expected recognition for herself. Her joy came quietly, from the satisfaction of seeing someone treated well, knowing that in a small way, she had made their day a little lighter. Little did she know that her simple, sincere acts of kindness were about to touch someone in ways far beyond what she could imagine, setting the stage for a moment that would change everything in ways her humble heart could never have predicted. As Emily handed him the coffee and taco, their eyes met for the first time in a way that felt longer than a simple glance. There was a quiet acknowledgement in that moment, a recognition of humanity, a subtle connection that neither of them expected. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a pause where the world outside the taco stand seemed to soften. He noticed her smile, the kind that wasn't forced or mechanical. It wasn't about getting a tip or being polite. It was genuine, warm, and steady. The kind that comes from someone who has known struggle but still chooses to treat people with dignity. Something in that authenticity made him pause, almost catching him off guard. Emily felt it too, a small spark of connection that didn't need words. It was a fleeting moment, yet it carried a weight beyond what either of them could explain. It was the kind of human recognition that lingers quietly in the mind long after the interaction ends, a simple but profound acknowledgement of presence. The man in the hoodie responded in kind, a faint smile touching the corners of his mouth, subtle but unmistakable. He didn't speak, didn't gesture, just let that brief, silent connection exist. And in that shared pause, something shifted, something unspoken, yet deeply understood. Emily returned to her tasks, but her eyes occasionally flicked toward him, curious about this quiet, thoughtful customer. There was a sense that he wasn't like anyone she'd served before. He carried himself with a calm attentiveness, as though the world around him was moving faster than he wanted to follow. And yet he noticed the small details that often went unseen. Even in those few moments, the energy between them held a subtle promise, an unspoken possibility that this encounter was not just ordinary. Both of them felt it, though neither could have named it, a sense that something meaningful was quietly unfolding. As he took his first sip of coffee and unwrapped his taco, the small, ordinary actions became part of a bigger story, one that was just beginning. A connection had been made, delicate and fragile, but powerful enough to hint at what was yet to come. When it was time for him to leave, Emily did something small but meaningful. She slipped a folded piece of paper onto the receipt, careful not to draw attention. On it, she had written, "Thank you for stopping by. I hope life brings you something good today." It was simple, heartfelt, and completely genuine. She didn't expect him to notice it, let alone read it. Most customers might have tossed it aside, never thinking twice. But something made her want to leave a little bit of kindness behind, like leaving a small gift without expecting anything in return. He picked up the note almost absent-mindedly, his fingers brushing the paper. Then he paused. The words sank in slowly, unexpectedly, as if they carried weight far beyond their simplicity. His calm demeanor faltered for just a moment, frozen by a feeling he couldn't immediately place. Emily went back to wiping tables, humming softly, unaware of the impact her words had already made. She kept herself busy, glancing at the door every so often, but focusing on work more than anything else. That moment of connection, brief and gentle, was enough for her, even if she didn't know its significance yet. He folded the note carefully, his eyes scanning the handwriting again. Something in the simplicity, the unassuming kindness, stirred a memory long tucked away. A memory of days when he had been overlooked, when a small gesture could have meant everything. For a few minutes, he just held the note, breathing slowly, letting the words sink in. In that quiet, ordinary taco stand, an extraordinary thing had happened. Something he hadn't expected, something that quietly touched him at his core. And as he finally stood up to leave, the weight of that small paper lingered, a reminder that even in a world full of money and power, a genuine act of kindness could stop him in his tracks, leaving him changed in ways he hadn't anticipated. The quiet man in the hoodie wasn't just an ordinary customer. His name was Michael Turner, a millionaire known for his wealth, generosity, and ability to remain completely private. Few people in the city had ever seen him without the shields of his fortune, and even fewer knew the man behind the money. Michael often went out in disguise, blending into ordinary settings just to experience life beyond the walls of luxury. He wanted to see people as they truly were, not as they acted around his name or his status. But no one had ever treated him the way Emily had, with pure kindness and no assumptions. He studied her briefly, marveling at the natural warmth she radiated. There was no expectation, no performance, just genuine care for another human being. He realized quickly that this simple act, her attention to detail, and her heartfelt note were unlike anything he had encountered before. Michael felt something stir deep inside him, a reminder of a younger version of himself. Years ago, he had been struggling, overlooked, invisible, craving someone's acknowledgement. He remembered the weight of being ignored, the loneliness of trying to prove himself to the world without success. This quiet moment in the taco stand was different. It wasn't about money or power. It was about connection, authenticity, and humility. Emily's small gestures reminded him of the value of everyday human kindness, something that his wealth had never been able to buy. For a brief second, he allowed himself to be just Michael, not the millionaire. He felt seen in a way he hadn't in years, and that feeling was almost overwhelming. Her note, her smile, her demeanor, it all struck him like a small revelation. And as he left the taco stand that day, Michael knew that her kindness had left a mark. Something inside him had shifted quietly, like a ripple through still water, hinting that this ordinary morning could lead to extraordinary changes he hadn't yet imagined. As Michael stepped into his sleek black car, he couldn't stop thinking about the note Emily had left. The streets passed by in a blur, but his mind replayed the moment over and over. It was just a few words on a scrap of paper, yet somehow, they carried more weight than any boardroom meeting or financial report ever could. He remembered the days when he had struggled just to get by, when a simple act of kindness could lift him from despair. That memory made the words hit even harder. In that small taco stand, a young woman who had no reason to know his story had reminded him of the humanity he sometimes forgot to honor in himself. As traffic lights changed and the hum of the engine filled the car, Michael felt a strange mix of nostalgia and awe. He realized that he hadn't encountered a genuine connection like this in years. Most people treated him cautiously, aware of his wealth, and never truly saw the person behind the fortune. He kept the note close, almost like a talisman, letting it remind him that real wealth isn't about money. It's about how you make others feel. Emily's words were simple, but they were honest, kind, and unexpected, and that combination left a mark that he couldn't ignore. Michael's thoughts drifted to the idea of giving back, but differently this time. Not with press releases or charity events, but in a quiet, personal way. Her small gesture had shown him that even the tiniest acts of care could have monumental effects on someone's life. The drive felt longer than usual, yet he didn't mind. Each passing street, each familiar corner, reminded him of his own journey. The struggles, the loneliness, the lessons learned. And he realized that today, in a place so ordinary, something extraordinary had occurred. By the time he reached home, Michael knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let this moment pass without action. The impact of Emily's kindness had taken root, and it was only a matter of time before it would grow into something far greater than either of them could yet imagine. Meanwhile, Emily wiped down the last table and began gathering her things, the weight of the day settling onto her shoulders like it always did. Her mind raced with a checklist of what needed to be done at home. Dinner, laundry, homework help for her little brother, and her mother's medication schedule. Life rarely gave her a break, and she had learned to keep moving even when exhaustion threatened. She counted out her tips carefully, each coin and bill carrying more significance than most people could understand. It wasn't just money. It was groceries, bus fare, and a little hope that the week could stretch a little further than expected. Every dollar was a decision, a small balancing act between survival and caring for her family. Emily's apartment was modest, almost sparse, yet filled with warmth and memories of simpler, happier times. Her brother ran around chasing a stray cat that had wandered in, laughing, oblivious to the stress that weighed on Emily. Her mother rested quietly on the couch, eyes tired but grateful, and Emily felt a mixture of love and responsibility that made her heart heavy yet determined. She moved from task to task, her mind always calculating, always anticipating the next challenge. A broken washing machine, a looming bill, a grocery run that stretched her budget too thin. These were the constants of her life. Yet through it all, she maintained a calm exterior, showing her family that they could rely on her no matter what. Even as she carried her groceries in from the small corner store, she allowed herself a quiet reflection. She had no idea that the small act she performed earlier that day, slipping a note to a customer, had already begun to ripple outward, touching someone in a way she couldn't yet imagine. The struggles were real, the stress was tangible, and yet Emily held onto a quiet resilience that refused to bend under pressure. Each small challenge was met with a mixture of practicality and hope, a silent determination that life, somehow, could improve despite the odds. As she tucked her brother into bed and checked her mother's medicine one last time, a sense of normalcy settled over her, even as the world outside her apartment remained unpredictable. Unbeknownst to her, this ordinary evening was only the calm before a day that would bring change in ways she couldn't yet foresee. The next morning, the taco stand was alive with chatter and the smell of sizzling meat. Emily moved quickly, setting tables and pouring coffee, accustomed to the rhythm of the busy morning. She didn't expect anything unusual, just another day of work and careful balancing of tips and tasks. Suddenly, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside, turning heads immediately. People began whispering as a well-dressed man stepped out. Emily froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat as she took in the sight. The calm, quiet customer from yesterday wasn't so quiet anymore, or ordinary. Michael stepped forward, this time without the hoodie, revealing a sharp suit and polished shoes. The recognition spread quickly among the other patrons. Some were shocked, others curious. Emily's mind raced, recalling the soft, quiet man who had barely said a word yesterday. Could it really be him? Her hands shook slightly as she arranged the napkins, trying to maintain composure. The taco stand felt smaller somehow, the room charged with tension and anticipation. Every eye was on the man who had entered like a shadow yesterday, now standing confidently in the morning sun. Emily felt a strange mixture of fear, excitement, and curiosity. She had treated him as any other customer, unaware of who he really was. Yet here he was, unmistakably powerful and wealthy. Her heart pounded as she realized the ordinary day had turned into something extraordinary. The crowd around them whispered softly, speculating about the man's sudden appearance. Emily's mind, however, focused on the connection she had felt yesterday. The genuine smile, the brief conversation, the note. Could all of that really matter to someone like him? As Michael approached the counter, Emily took a deep breath. She was about to confront a reality she hadn't expected. A reality where her ordinary actions might meet an extraordinary response. The morning, which had started so normally, was about to transform in ways she couldn't yet predict. Michael walked up to the counter, holding the small note Emily had left behind. His expression was soft, almost vulnerable, and Emily felt a jolt of recognition mixed with disbelief. This was the same quiet man who had barely spoken yesterday, now standing before her with a presence that demanded attention. "No one's ever written me something like this," he said, his voice low but sincere. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, unsure how to respond. She had treated him like anyone else, with nothing expected in return. Yet here he was, sharing a side of himself few had ever seen. Her mind raced, trying to reconcile the ordinary woman she had been yesterday with the millionaire standing before her. It felt surreal, like a dream she wasn't sure she had earned. The words she had written, so small and simple, had reached someone who usually lived in a world far removed from hers. Michael's eyes held a mixture of awe and gratitude, a reflection of the impact her kindness had made. He studied her closely, noting the authenticity in her expression, the way she carried herself with humility despite the struggles she had shared only in glimpses. The other customers watched quietly, sensing the magnitude of the moment. Emily felt their curiosity but kept her focus on him, realizing that her ordinary act had created a rare, genuine connection, bridging a gap between two very different lives. He handed back the note, a subtle tremor in his hands betraying his composed exterior. "This reminded me of who I once was," he added. Emily's eyes widened as she realized that her simple gesture had unlocked something deep within him, something human and profoundly relatable. In that quiet morning, amidst the aroma of tacos and brewing coffee, the truth was revealed. The man she had served without thought of reward was someone extraordinary. And in that revelation, Emily's world, too, began to shift in ways she could hardly imagine. Michael leaned on the counter, his voice calm but filled with emotion. He began to share a part of his past, stories of struggle, loneliness, and moments when he had been invisible to the world. Emily listened quietly, her hands folded, realizing that this man's wealth had not shielded him from hardship in his own journey. He explained how her small act of kindness reminded him of the people who had once helped him when he had nothing. The note, the smile, the genuine care. These gestures had rekindled a memory he had long buried, showing him that even the simplest acts could have lasting power. Then he paused, looking directly at Emily, as if weighing his next words carefully. "I want to help," he said softly. "Not because you asked, not because it's expected, but because your kindness deserves to be returned in a meaningful way." Her heart skipped a beat. Michael's offer was more than generous, it was transformative. He proposed a scholarship for her brother, ensuring he could pursue education without financial burden. He promised support for her mother's medical needs, lifting a constant weight off her shoulders. And he offered Emily a role in managing one of his new restaurants, a chance to grow professionally in ways she hadn't dared to imagine. The magnitude of his words left Emily speechless. She had spent her life quietly managing hardships, never imagining that a small gesture could ripple outward in such powerful ways. Each component of his offer addressed real struggles, giving her family stability and hope for the future. Michael's eyes held a warmth that contrasted with his usual guarded demeanor. "I've never done this for anyone just like this," he continued. "You showed me what real kindness looks like, and that's worth more than anything I've ever built or bought." Emily's chest tightened with emotion, the reality sinking in. In that moment, everything shifted. The ordinary taco stand, the routine morning, the quiet act of writing a note, each piece had combined to create a turning point. For Emily and her family, life would never be the same, all because she chose to give kindness without expecting anything in return. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as the weight of Michael's offer sank in. She had spent years working quietly, doing what she could to care for her family, never expecting recognition or reward. And now, here he was, standing before her, offering opportunities that felt almost impossible to believe. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the note he had returned, tracing the familiar words that had started this chain of events. Each phrase now carried a double meaning, a small gesture of hope that had blossomed into real, tangible change for her family's future. Around them, the taco stand was silent, the usual chatter replaced by a reverent stillness. Other customers watched, sensing that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Not just a millionaire helping someone, but the raw, human impact of kindness and authenticity. Emily thought of her brother, who would now have the chance to study without financial worry. She thought of her mother, whose health needs would be met without constant stress. She thought of herself, who would finally have an opportunity to grow professionally, guided by someone who believed in her potential. Her chest tightened with a mix of gratitude, disbelief, and humility. Years of quiet perseverance had led to this moment, proving that even the smallest acts could carry immense power. The tears weren't just for the offer itself. They were for the recognition that her life, her efforts, and her heart mattered. Michael's expression softened as he noticed her reaction. He had seen plenty of people in his life, but few had moved him in this way. Her reaction confirmed that genuine kindness could resonate far beyond what anyone could imagine, bridging worlds that otherwise seemed separate and unattainable. And in that shared silence, a profound understanding passed between them. Money could open doors, but it was empathy, compassion, and integrity that truly transformed lives. Emily's life had changed, not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually, proving the timeless power of small, heartfelt actions. Michael took a step back, letting the moment settle between them. He explained why he often disguised himself, wandering unnoticed in ordinary places. It wasn't to play a game or seek attention. It was to remember the value of every person, no matter how small their circumstances might seem. He shared how wealth could easily create distance, making it hard to see beyond status, power, or appearances. Emily's simple act reminded him that true understanding and connection came from recognizing the humanity in everyone, not from the size of their bank account. Emily listened, absorbing his words, realizing that humility wasn't just about staying grounded. It was about seeing the world clearly and acting with kindness regardless of what others could offer in return. She saw now that her small gesture had sparked a deeper reflection in someone who had everything. The lesson was mutual. Michael had reminded her that kindness is powerful, and she had shown him that authenticity could penetrate even the walls built by wealth and experience. Their exchange was a rare alignment of values, proving that respect and empathy can bridge worlds. Around the taco stand, the energy shifted subtly. Others began to notice not just the financial implications of the encounter, but the emotional depth. It was a reminder that life's richest moments often stem from humility, gratitude, and genuine human connection. Michael's eyes softened as he continued. No matter how much you achieve, the true wealth is in how you treat people along the way. Emily nodded, understanding that her choice to act with kindness had led to a lesson neither of them would forget. As the morning moved on, a quiet transformation lingered. Both of them had learned that day that humility and authenticity are rarer and more valuable than money, shaping lives in ways no fortune could buy. And this lesson would guide them forward, influencing every decision to come. Weeks passed, and life for Emily and her family began to change in ways she hadn't dared to imagine. Her brother started his scholarship program, thriving in a school that once felt out of reach. Each day, she watched him grow with excitement and confidence, a constant reminder of the power of opportunity. Her mother's health improved as well, the worry and stress that had weighed on Emily's shoulders easing with each doctor's visit made possible by Michael's support. Small victories, like a better night's sleep or a well-stocked pantry, became reminders that stability was no longer a distant dream. Emily herself began managing one of Michael's new restaurants, a chance to develop skills she hadn't realized she possessed. She learned quickly, gaining confidence, leadership, and insight into the business world while remaining true to her humble, compassionate nature. The taco stand, once her daily routine and only source of income, became a symbol of her past struggles, reminding her of how far she had come. Every smile she shared with her staff now carried deeper meaning, reflecting lessons of patience, resilience, and human connection. Michael visited occasionally, not just as a benefactor but as a mentor, sharing wisdom without overshadowing her growth. Their interactions were genuine, rooted in mutual respect and a shared understanding that kindness and humility could create long-lasting impact. Emily's life transformed quietly but profoundly. The ordinary mornings, the small acts of care, and the seemingly simple note had unlocked a chain of events that reshaped her family's future. Each day carried a sense of hope, possibility, and purpose that had once seemed unattainable. And in the heart of it all, Emily learned that real beginnings often come disguised as ordinary moments. A smile, a note, or a simple act of kindness could open doors to a life she had never imagined, proving that the smallest gestures often create the largest changes. This story isn't just about a millionaire or a waitress. It's about the power of small, genuine actions. Emily's simple note, a few words written from the heart, had the ability to touch someone profoundly, even someone who had everything money could buy. It shows that kindness is never wasted. You don't need wealth, status, or recognition to make a real difference in someone's life. Every smile, every considerate gesture, every moment of empathy can create ripples that reach farther than you can imagine. Michael's experience reminds us that humility matters, no matter how much we achieve. Even those who seem to have it all can benefit from the authenticity and care that come from seeing people as human beings first, not as titles or numbers on a bank statement. Emily's life transformed because she acted without expecting reward, proving that selfless actions carry the power to change futures. Sometimes the most ordinary moments, like working at a taco stand, can become turning points with extraordinary consequences. The story also teaches that gratitude and recognition can be life-changing. Acknowledging someone's efforts, even in the smallest way, can ignite hope, inspire growth, and create connections that last a lifetime. It's a reminder that we all have the ability to impact lives, regardless of our circumstances. Simple acts of kindness can transform someone's world, and in turn, shape your own life in ways you might never anticipate. So, take a moment today to show genuine care, to speak a kind word, or to offer a small gesture without expecting anything back. You never know whose life you might change, and whose heart you might touch along the way. Life can change in the most unexpected ways, sometimes with nothing more than a taco, a hoodie, and a handwritten note. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that kindness is never wasted.